to join me in opposing this misguided and this dangerous bill.
Republican Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler literally cried on the House floor during the passage of the marriage equality bill. Now, you may be wondering, isn't marriage already legal? Yes, but not really until this bill. So I'll get to more on that after this clip. And I'll also get to Vicky Hartzler's connection to the LGBTQ community, which may be surprising to you. But first, here's the clip. It is too good. It is too insane. Just watch this.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you my priority. Protect religious liberty, protect people of faith, and protect Americans who believe in the true meaning of marriage. I hope and pray that my colleagues will find the courage to join me in opposing this misguided and this dangerous bill. And I yield back.
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
I have never enjoyed seeing someone cry as much as I did there. This is just so crazy to be this full of hate, to be this misguided, this brainwashed, that you cry over the passage of marriage equality. No one's forcing you to get gay married. Protecting, she mentions there, protecting religious liberty. Who is forcing you to not get married to a man? No one. Marry whoever you love. Why is that a problem for you if other people are in happy relationships that are of the same sex? Why does that, how does that impact your life at all? It can't. It doesn't. But somehow they've internalized this hatred so much that it affects them so deeply. And this is like, this isn't a performance. This is real. So some people there, you know, on the right are definitely, by the way, these votes are crazy. The amount of people that voted against it. Many of these, you know, 169 here definitely don't care either way, but they're voting a certain way for their base. But there are people like Vicky Hartzler that are true believers. Now, I will say, regardless of being a true believer or not, in terms of a position of power, it really doesn't matter. So you can't be one of these individuals here who voted against us and turn around later on and say, oh, well, I was doing it because I had to stay in my seat. That still makes you a piece of shit. You used your power for wrong. Why should you be given any sort of leniency just simply because you personally felt differently? What matters when you are in power or in media, you have a platform. What matters is how you use your voice, use your power. So before I get to more on Vicky and her connection to this issue, House did pass the bill, thankfully. So 258 to 169, with 39 Republicans voting with Democrats. Of course, the entirety of the no vote were the GOP. More on this bill here. So this ensures same-sex marriage rights are protected between states. Became a top priority for Democrats in light of the Supreme Court's June decision to overrule its precedent in 1973's Roe v. Wade, guaranteeing a constitutional right to abortion. Justice Clarence Thomas indicated in a concurring opinion at the time that he would like to see the court reverse the 2015 ruling Obergefell v. Hodges, guaranteeing the national right to same-sex marriage, which was decided on similar grounds as Roe. So this is why this bill came to light, because of the potential here with Obergefell v. Hodges and what Thomas wrote, Clarence Thomas wrote at the time. So that's why this was done. Now it's actually codified into law. This codifies same-sex and interracial marriages, if you can believe it. That also, I guess, could have been overturned before this bill. But also here, support at an all-time high for gay marriage at 71%. To be honest, I'm surprised it's not higher at this point, but there are still a lot of backwards people in the world. But now let's get to more on Vicky Hartzler and her family connection here. So this is her nephew. Her nephew is Andrew Hartzler. He wasn't allowed to be gay on campus, so he's suing. He is part of a lawsuit that seeks to end an exemption to Title IX that has allowed religious schools to receive lucrative federal funding despite policies that discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation. So he is part of that suit that is currently fighting this. He was forced to go to this Christian college because his family wouldn't help pay for any other college, and he couldn't afford himself to go to college, so he had to go to this Christian one where he was forced to not be open. And that's her nephew. So he has taken a stand against the family brand. It isn't just Vicky Hartzler. It's also, as I mentioned, his parents. And he, his life was fairly tough. So I'm sure this story is familiar for a lot of people who have experienced something similar. But let me read a bit of this here. So when Andrew Hartzler was 5, his parents scoured his bedroom of all SpongeBob SquarePants paraphernalia after Fox News aired a report suggesting that the cartoon sea creature was gay. A while later, his parents pulled him out of a Christian school he attended. Classmates were belittling him and suggesting he was gay, and his parents were afraid he might start believing it. As a teenager, they sent him to a Christian summer camp that specialized in conversion therapy, a cruel attempt to fix gay people that is banned in many states and cities. When he got to college, he learned that many gay students were there for the same reason he was. Their parents thought it would change who they are. At assemblies, the college president quoted Old Testament scripture that said men who have sexual relations with other men should be put to death. While home for break during his sophomore year, he attempted suicide. It marked a turning point with his parents, he says. They had wanted to deny he was gay and no longer could. So he says here, once I told my parents my truth, he says, I felt like I could tell anybody my truth, but it also did not lead to acceptance. So while they still say they love him unconditionally, they apparently love him despite his sexuality. I don't know how people still operate this way in the year 2022. Look, I get how strong brainwashing can be, but when the entirety of culture has moved in a very different direction over the last 20 years, you don't begin questioning what you're believing, why you feel the way you feel about certain things, how does this impact your life personally? If your son loves the same sex, how does that impact your life? It doesn't. You should just want them to be happy. As you can see, I struggle with understanding how people can be this far gone, but this still exists, including, of course, Vicky, who is in power. And more on that. So Andrew Hartzler has a more complex theory around why his aunt is the way she is. That's something I've always wondered about in general, is why people become so concerned about the lives of other people, he says. It's something I've struggled with because my aunt doesn't have any personal connection to gay people. I think a lot of times we as people are scared of what is different, and I think that is somewhat that way with my aunt. So look, again, this brainwashing, this being scared of the others, maybe in the 80s, 90s makes more sense. But I don't know, didn't like Will and Grace change a lot of this and made it and normalized it, at least began to normalize same-sex relationships, and then people began, feeling a lot more free to come out. And I'm not saying it wasn't just obviously Will and Grace. There's clearly, decades of a movement, the gay movement, that helped to push these laws forward and to help the acceptance of gay people. But again, things have changed so much. It's just so bizarre to me that people like this still exist and believe it so strongly. And of course, Vicky, rose to power on being against same-sex marriage. In my research, I found videos on her, after the ruling on same-sex marriage, of course, pushing back against it and regurgitating all the other bullshit we've seen a million times. So it's depressing that these people still exist, but at the same time, they are losing. So majority opinion I showed you are for same-sex relationships. The vast majority of people, I have to assume at this point, know someone in their personal lives who is gay or have met someone who's gay and they have no issue with that. But there are still people like Vicky who even has a nephew that is gay and still is at the forefront of pushing this sort of bigotry.